Story 1. Lauren had only made it 20 feet toward the laundry room when the smell hit. Sweet, rotten, animal carrion thick, and something in her body chose for her. Flight. She was running before she understood why. They'd moved to Oklahoma a few weeks earlier, a ground floor unit off a major interstate, the distant hum of traffic ever present. The laundry room sat off an alley with its cinder-block walls and a flickering motion-triggered light. Lauren wasn't skittish by nature. She had a husband who smoked under the stars, a daughter who fell asleep with her door cracked, and a dog who announced visitors with uncontrollable barking. That first day, at noon, Lauren stepped out with a plastic tub of towels hooked to her hip. The building's shared laundry room sat off the alley, 30 paces or so between her door and the cinder-block shed. She'd meant to be quick, start a load, come back to trim a grocery list, top off the dog's water. Ordinary errands lining up in an ordinary afternoon. But the stench, so strong it burned the back of her throat, hit her halfway down the walkway. Sweet, sour, like roadkill left too long in the hot August sun. Panic rose from somewhere older than thought and buckled her knees. Lauren pivoted, shouldered through her door, and threw the deadbolt with shaking hands. 15 minutes later, when she tried again, the air was clean. The world ordinary. As if whatever had been there had simply disappeared. A week slipped by. 1 a.m. one night found her and her husband out by the steps, sharing a cigarette beneath a dull orange security light. At first they thought it was a dog, hit on the interstate maybe. Concerned, they followed the sound to the edge of the parking lot. The field and tree line across the road were so far from all light sources, they appeared like a void in the darkness of night. Then the wheezing sound changed. Owls can be strange, Lauren knew that. She'd grown up hearing them. But this wasn't an owl. This sounded like a person trying to sound like an owl. Her husband cupped his hands and called out, "Hey, is someone there?" Silence. It stretched just long enough for them to think it was over. Then, the laugh wasn't right. Not cruel exactly, just unlearned. Like someone imitating a laugh they'd never actually heard. A sudden icy chill swept through her. They ran, filled with fear, returning to the safety of their home, the front door catching behind them with a rattle. Dusk, a few nights later. Lauren stood by the steps with a mug of tea warming her hands. Across the 2-lane road, 2 men followed the gravel shoulder by the same tree line. Neighbors from the next building, she thought. Their voices carried in loose pieces, joking and laughing, 2 close friends enjoying each other's company. Then something brought them to a stop. They peered into the darkness of the forest. One of them lifted his phone and the flashlight cut into the trees. The light slid across trunks, found the snagged curl of old barbed wire, then pushed deeper. The man recoiled as if he'd touched a live wire. The phone dipped. "Nope," he said, or maybe swore. Lauren couldn't catch the word, only the shape of fear in it. Both men spun around simultaneously, sprinting back the way they'd come from. Then, nothing. Lauren hadn't heard the sound from the trees, no snap of brush, no breath. Not even a fake owl tonight. She didn't see anything either. Only the place where the phone flashlight had just been, now abruptly blank. As if the beam had outlined something and then erased it. The branches seemed to hold their breath, and in the pause that followed, she found herself stepping back toward the door without deciding to. A week on, Lauren's phone buzzed while she was at work. The phone displayed the message preview from her husband. Heard our daughter talking and laughing across the field. A second message arrived before Lauren could open it. It's her, babe. Same voice, same little laugh. Lauren excused herself from her desk and stepped into the break room. The text messages unfurled. Standing at the window, thought she'd slipped out. She's got that I'm telling a joke tone like she does. Then the giggle. Kept saying something like, watch me. A photo followed, time-stamped, a little blurred, of their hallway. Their daughter's bedroom door just ajar, the nightlight leaking a small gold crescent at the threshold. Then, another photo. A colouring book splayed on the carpet, crayons scattered like candy. Then his words again. I haven't moved from the window. I can see she's in her room. But in the field, it keeps talking like her. Lauren called. Her husband picked up on the first ring. Low voice. Listen, he instructed, letting the phone fall silent, holding it toward the window pane. For a moment, Lauren only heard wind in the phone's mic and the soft tick of their kitchen clock. Then, a child's voice, far and thin. The shape right, but the timing wrong. Pauses placed like someone trying to remember where they should go. What is it saying? She asked. Watch me, he said, and over here. The words are hers, but it's like someone wearing her voice. He didn't call back to it. He didn't open the door. He just watched the dark line of the field beyond the road. The sound went on for 2 more breaths, her daughter's tone without her daughter inside it. Then, it snapped off mid-word. A clean cut like a wire pulled. The silence that followed felt somehow staged. After that, the house changed its language. Footsteps crossed their roof when the wind lay still. The alley gave up little scrapes and shuffles. The dog would freeze, nose angled at the bottom of the door, a low growl caught behind its teeth. Twice, Lauren whistled into the dark on purpose, calling it out, wanting proof. Sometimes an owl answered back, mock polite. More often, nothing. Silence thick as a hand over a mouth. Then came the morning with the blood. Lauren noticed it at first as she angled the deadbolt open with her coffee in the other hand. Dried, rust-brown smears along the door jamb at shoulder height. Like someone had gripped the frame with a messy blood-soaked palm and dragged it. More had congealed in a thin crescent at the base of the door where the sweep met the threshold. Up close, there was a faint iron tang, the kind you taste before you admit you smell it. The dog pressed his nose on the crack and growled, then backed away with his hackles up. The scratches were worse when the light hit them. They spinded out from the doorknob in short, impatient bursts. Not the wide, mindless arcs an animal would make, but quick tests, clustered where a thumb would steady. Lauren ran a fingernail across one. Grit caught under the nail bed. The paint had curled at the edges. For a moment, she just stood there on her own doormat, trying to do the math of it. Inside versus outside. Private versus public. Where are you supposed to stand when your home is the thing being approached? Lauren took pictures. Close, then further back with the unit number in frame. Because proof is easier to hold than a feeling. She didn't clean it, not yet. She kept imagining the hand that left the smear, the angle of the wrist, the patience in those little ticks around the lock. That afternoon, the neighbour from 2 doors down stood on her mat with his cap in his hands and a pulse in his throat. "You see your cables?" he asked, and then didn't wait. He led her to the low grey box by his door where his internet line came up from the ground. The cover hung crooked, screws missing. Inside, the lines were sliced neat, straight through. No chew marks, no fraying. Ends tucked back like a job half finished. "It was the middle of the night," he said. "I heard my door handle turn." He mimed the rattle with his wrist. Then a hit, like a shoulder ramming against it. Once, he paused. Twice. He'd braced his feet, yanked the door open hard, ready to swing. There was no one in the hall. No echo of running feet. Just the hallway light stuttering. I stepped out, he said at a low voice, and it felt like somebody had just been where I was looking. You know the feeling? He rubbed his forearm as if someone had laid a cold hand there. Cables were fine yesterday. I checked them after I heard yours got wonky last week. Lauren looked past him to the long strip of corridor and felt the same arithmetic start up again. How much can a door keep at bay? And what happens when the boundary learns your habits as well as you do? Lauren wanted proof, a recording, something she could hold up against the doubt of friends who smiled too gently. She waited by the window with her phone cued to record. When the call came, a soft, uncertain hoot from the dark edge of the trees, she hit the red circle. The sound stopped. On the one night Lauren caught anything at all, the audio ended in a low, inexplicable moan that seemed to come from the same mouth as the mock owl. Then nothing. The clip's end felt sawed off, as if whatever was out there could hear the idea of being captured and refused it. When Lauren mentioned the smell, the corpse-sweet warning that arrived before fear, her co-worker went very still. They were by the break room sink. He was a citizen of a nearby nation, a man who told hunting stories with his hands and usually laughed with his whole face. Now, however, he didn't meet her eyes. He set his cup down, thumb circling the rim once. "Leave it be," he said at last, voice low enough that the soda machine's hum almost swallowed it. "Wash the blood from your door. Stop calling to it." He made a small wiping motion in the air, palm flat, as if clearing a threshold. Then he shook his head at the floor, a quiet no aimed at the idea of questions. "We don't feed it," he added after a beat. "Not with our attention, not with our mouths." A glance toward the exit, toward the dusk beyond the loading dock. Lauren waited, but that was all he would give. Not reluctance exactly, more like a respect, a boundary he wouldn't cross. "Not my stories to tell," he said, softer. "Just do what I said." He didn't elaborate. He didn't have to. The words felt handed down, smoothed by many mouths, heavy with a kind of age that doesn't bother explaining itself. It was near 1 again, when the dog went rigid beside the door. Lauren stood there with the hall light throwing a weak rectangle across the carpet. The smell found her first, faint but certain, like meat turned sweet in summer. The owl spoke once from the trees, too slow, too careful. And then that laugh broke the night again. Off to the left, as if it had sidled closer. She didn't open the door. She didn't say a word. Her finger hovered over the record button and went still. She could feel it. Watched. Measured. If she cursed, it would answer. If she begged, it would go silent. Lauren set the phone down on the entry table and let the moment pass without proof. The dog's growl thinned to a whine. The smell began to lift, atom by atom. Silence came, like a lid shutting. In daylight, Lauren washed the door. The scratches, she'd later learn, had a human explanation. The blood did not. She stopped whistling into the dark. She stopped calling out to it. She did not stop listening. Nights kept their noises, the roof, the alley, the shape of weight pacing just past the fence line. Sometimes Lauren would stand a few feet back from the window, just enough to see the trees without offering the glass her face. She'd think of the 2 men with the phone light who saw what she could not. She'd think of her husband turning from the window to the partially closed door of her daughter's room, and how a voice can be close enough too perfect to be wrong. If Lauren told herself it was an animal, the thought snagged on the laugh. If she told herself it was a person, it snagged on the smell. Either way, the result was the same. Something learned her routines and learned her name well enough to try it on. Some nights, when the interstate hushes and even the dog sleeps, she swears she can feel it recognize that she recognizes it. As if awareness itself is a kind of invitation. On those nights, she leaves the hall light on and keeps the phone face down, the record button within reach but untouched. Because every time she has tried to capture the sound, the night itself has decided she doesn't get to keep proof. Story 2. The truck's high beam swung wide across the end of a dead street and caught something that should not have been there. Pale, jointed wrong, jaw gaping like a trap. Jordan didn't breathe until it scuttled backward into the bush, its movement unnatural, as if rewinding itself. Utah, small town edge. At 17, Jordan lived with his parents in a ranch house where the backyard didn't stop so much as thin out. Fence, then field, then miles of scrub and mountains before the world remembered to be a town again. His best friend's place sat behind them on a paper street that developers started and never finished. A little cul-de-sac stamped into the field. The friend's driveway emptied into that circle, as if it were an actual residential block. Jordan slept at his friend's a lot. Fights at home. Homework spread over a basement rug, game controllers braided in their laps. The window well of that basement looked up at a concrete back porch. 2 steps, a rusting grill, the bottom of the sliding door. It started as a sound. Every once in a while, twice a month, then not for weeks, then again, their sleep would be disturbed by a noise on the porch above the window. A dragging, as if something heavy were being pulled. A gargle, the breath of a throat gone wrong. The kind of sound that made you want to say, "old pipes," but made your stomach say no. They'd freeze. Then they'd talk themselves brave. Count down from 5, throw the window latch, take the stairs in 2 strides, slide open the door. The porch would be bare, the night air ordinary. This went on for years. A pattern Jordan filed under "just don't ask." He didn't believe in anything you could put on a t-shirt. No Wendigos, no skinwalkers. No whatever people say out here. He believed in trucks that wouldn't start, in lost homework, in the weird relief of a night where the only sound was the hum of a fridge. The summer his friend was getting ready to move, they padded a lot of nights with movies, games, and the kind of talk that only finds you at 2 a.m. When the air turned stale with their screen heat and potato chips, the friend would ask, "Music drive?" Their ritual cure. They climbed into the pickup. The cul-de-sac made a perfect loop to spin them toward the main road. Jordan's hand found the switch. The high beams leapt awake and washed the field in hard white. There it was. Not a person, but shaped like one that had been misremembered. It was on all 4s, naked. Too big where the limbs met. Elbows and knees bending into themselves like they'd learned the human trick from a drawing and got the folds backward. Skin stretched too tight, a paper-thin pelt over bone. The face, a mouth unhinged into a black opening as wide as hunger, and eyes that didn't blink, just drank the light and gave nothing back. It turned. It saw them watching it. Then it moved, not away or forward, backward, hands and feet scrabbling in a fluent reverse, like film running in the wrong direction. It slid into the brush and was gone. Jordan's hands had already found the dash. His friend's breath whistled once, then failed. They stared forward as if stillness were a spell. Only when their chests hurt did they look at each other. A glance that said, "Did you see?" and "Don't say it out loud" at the same time. They didn't go for a drive. They turned the truck by inches, eased it back to the driveway like noise might matter, and slipped inside the basement where the window well watched the undersides of things. Neither of them had ever pointed a gun at anything alive. Tonight, they broke the polymer case anyway, laid the weapons on the carpet alongside the controllers, then didn't touch them, as if opening the box made the house feel less alone. They listened. No dragging, no gargle. The silence had weight to it, as if the house were holding its breath and waiting to see what they would do. Jordan tried words on for size. It was a deer. No hooves. A cow? On all fours, but wrong in every way that matters. A person? Then why the mouth? Why the backward grace? Saying skinwalker felt like borrowing a story that wasn't his to use. Saying Wendigo felt like saying nothing but fear. He found himself staring at the basement window, the little rectangle of outside. The glass made a mirror. 2 boys sat there looking back at him. He moved 3 steps to the left until his reflection was gone. He did not want whatever was outside to know his face. The silence didn't break. When morning found them, they let it. His friend had 2 half-moons under his eyes, and Jordan's stomach felt blued like a bruise. As he grew older, he moved, as did his friend. Jordan drove back sometimes to see his folks, to eat the kind of food that came with leftovers in plastic tubs. On those visits, he'd take the long way and slow where the asphalt ended and the field began. The place felt like it was watching, like an eye had opened in the brush and decided it could wait as long as he could. Once, broad daylight, nothing spooky to lean on, Jordan stopped at the edge of the circle and killed the engine. A hawk's shadow slid over the field. The cul-de-sac's white paint had blistered and flaked like old skin. He told himself he was looking for coyotes, for anything with a name. He didn't see it. He didn't hear it. He still rolled his window up before he put the truck back in drive. Story 3. Riley was 17 the winter his mother rented a single wide at the edge of a gravel works outside a Colorado Plains town. Beyond the fence, 100 acres of leased pasture gone to knee-high blue stem, and past that, a black seam of cottonwoods along a dry creek. School was open in fits and starts that year. Half buses, half borrowed laptops, and morning started before the sun. One morning, he and his mother were arguing about something small, when they shouldered the door and stepped onto the 6 creaking steps into dark. The noise came from behind the shed, a long, grit-bright scrape like a shovel edge pleading its way across rock. Riley and his mother stopped mid-step. The dog inside the trailer huffed once through the screen and went quiet. They listened. The night answered with nothing. So complete it felt intentional. Something tall moved across the backyard, fast and wrong. A shadow in the porch light's fringe. It wasn't the height that stunned him so much as the proportions. Arms too long, hands that seemed to hang past where the knees should have been. The whole frame built like a man drawn by someone who'd never seen one. In a split second it vanished beyond the fence. Riley's mother had his wrist before he could breathe. "Down," she said, already shouldering him toward the steps. "Go." He obeyed because her voice had that edge. He ran to the road, she stayed on the porch, holding the door and the dark at the same time, eyes scissoring between him and the shed. They didn't talk about it after. Not that day, not for a while. At night, though, the house learned new sounds. Something tested the aluminium skirting with knuckles that sounded like wood. A dragging came and went overhead as if weight crossed the roof on its belly. Once, close to 3 a.m., Riley woke to a breath outside his back window. A gargled, water-clogged pull of air that stopped the second he named it breathing in his head. They called the sheriff twice. Deputies stood in the yard with their hands on their belts while the porch light shivered motes through the cold. Probably a buck caught in a wire, one said. Coyotes, another shrugged. Everyone said animals. No one offered to stay through the night to see. Morning showed long vertical gouges under Riley's window. 5 raked and clean, like something had been marking time. His mother washed them with bleach and said they were nothing. Saying nothing made living cheaper. Riley moved away. Years later, in another state, he started dating a woman named Mia, who had a love for walking. Any opportunity to walk rather than drive she would take. She especially enjoyed walking in the evenings, loving the quiet of night with only the sound of wildlife and insects breaking the silence. One winter, they drove back to his mother's for the weekend. The shed leaned harder now. The porch light buzzed but still worked. The field beyond the fence was the same. After dinner, while his mother rinsed plates, Riley handed May a flashlight and invited her out into the dark evening. They stepped onto the 6 creaking boards of the porch. Mia swept the beam once along the fence, joking soft to keep the dark small. "So this is where you learn to hate mornings," she said. He smiled, almost, because it was easier than explaining. The insects stopped like someone had found their off switch. Then the flashlight snagged on eyes. Too far apart, too high. Set above the grass at the fence line. Not amber, not green. Flat, pale, moon bright. Looking straight at them. Mia raised the beam without meaning to. The grass threw back cage bars of shadow. The thing behind those bars did not blink, did not shy. It was tall enough that she had to tilt the light to keep the eyes. Too thin, like most of it had been erased. The gaze moved from Riley to Mia, and then back again. Slow, exact. And something in Riley understood it had measured both of their heights once already. "Don't," Mia said gently, hand on his sleeve. "Just inside." The word inside was a bridge she laid very carefully. The moment she spoke, it moved. Not a step, a hinge in closing. A body that had learned motion by studying film at half speed, crooked and fluent at once. It covered no distance he could swear to, and yet it was closer. They didn't run. Mia walked backward, palm firm on Riley's wrist. Riley stepped forward. The eyes hung where they'd been and somehow altered the air. A smell rose. Sweet, fouled, iron warm, like rotten meat. The porch light flickered. The world held its breath. The sound climbed out of the grass and tried different throats before it found none it liked. It didn't come closer. It didn't have to. They backed through the door. Mia's hip found the frame. Riley's hand found the deadbolt. He turned it, and in the small defiant click there was a prayer. Something scraped along the aluminium skirting as if testing the idea of the house. Slow, patient. Then stillness again, shaped like listening. His mother stepped into the hallway, dish towel in one hand, eyes already knowing. "Don't look," she said, not unkind and reaching past them to snap off the porch light. They sat in the small kitchen table with the room light low and the curtains shut. The smell thinned by degrees. Twice something touched the siding with knuckles of a wooden hand and decided no. When it was finally fully quiet. No one said the word for the thing. Mia reached across the table and pressed 2 fingers into Riley's wrist until his pulse slowed. Around 3 a.m., Riley woke in his old room to a sound he knew from years ago. Metal dragged over stone, long and deliberate, ending the instant he decided what it was. He lay very still. He did not get up to look.